Chicago, January 1950. In a federal courthouse, a man sits waiting for a jury to decide his fate. He has been charged with 31 felony counts: mail fraud, securities violations, conspiracy. The prosecution called it one of the greatest corporate frauds in American history. Outside the courthouse, on the pavement, sit 8 Tucker 48s. His lawyers arranged it deliberately. Every single day of this trial, those cars have been driven to the courthouse by volunteers, running, performing, proving something. His name is Preston Tucker, but here is what the prosecution could never explain. In 1948, while every major American car manufacturer was selling vehicles that would kill you in a crash, Preston Tucker had already built a car with a padded dashboard, a safety cage, a windshield engineered to pop out intact so it wouldn't shatter into your face, a center headlight that rotated with the steering wheel so you could see in the dark. Features that would not become mandatory in American cars for another 20 years. So the question was never whether Preston Tucker committed fraud. The question is, who needed him to be a fraudster? And why? Preston Tucker was born in 1903 in Capac, Michigan. His father, a railroad engineer, died of appendicitis when Preston was a small child. His mother raised him in Lincoln Park, a suburb of Detroit, 40 miles north of Detroit, the car capital of the world. From the time he could understand what a car was, he had one obsession: not driving them, not collecting them, building them. He worked garages, parts shops, racing circuits. He absorbed everything from every engineer who let him watch. By his 30s, Tucker had a reputation for being able to sell anything to anyone. He was 6'1", sharp suits. He drove fast and talked faster. When he walked into a room, people paid attention before he said a word. During World War II, Tucker had worked on military vehicle designs, and in that process, he noticed something that would define the rest of his life. The cars being sold to American families were dangerous, not just uncomfortable, not just old-fashioned, genuinely, provably dangerous. The steering column was positioned to impale the driver in a frontal crash. The windshield shattered into razors. The dashboard was hard metal. No structural protection around the passengers, no seatbelts, no consideration for what physics does to a human body at 40 miles per hour. General Motors knew this. Ford knew this. Chrysler knew this. They had the engineering ability to fix every single one of these problems. They had simply decided not to. In 1946, Tucker formed the Tucker Corporation. He leased the largest manufacturing building in the United States, a former Dodge plant in Chicago that had built engines for B-29 bombers during the war, with 93 acres of floor space under one roof. Over the next 2 years, he would raise more than $26 million from investors and dealers who believed in his vision. He assembled a team. He hired the best designer he could find. His name was Alex Tremulis. And what Tremulis did next still seems impossible. Tucker told him he had 100 days to design the most advanced production car in American history. And Tremulis said yes. Most automotive designs of the era took years. Alex Tremulis worked 18-hour days. His team barely left the building. What they produced in 100 days was unlike anything that had ever rolled off an American assembly line. Wide, low, aerodynamic in a way that looked like it arrived from a decade in the future. While American cars of the era were boxy and upright, the Tucker 48, first announced to the public as the Tucker Torpedo, hugged the road. Tucker had designed the car from one question outward: what will keep the person inside alive if everything goes wrong? The engine went in the rear. In a frontal collision, the most deadly type of accident, the heaviest component was behind the passengers, not hurtling toward them. The windshield was engineered to pop out of its frame intact during a crash. No razor shards, no glass in your face. A structural safety cage was built into the frame around the passenger compartment. The dashboard was padded in an era when every other American car had a steel dashboard designed to fracture skulls. The steering column was designed to collapse on impact rather than drive through the driver's chest. And at the center of the car's nose, a single headlight that physically rotated with the steering wheel. Turn left, it lit the left side of the road. Turn right, it lit the right. Tucker called it the cyclops eye. The first journalist to see it, demonstrated in the dark, reportedly went silent for several seconds. Seatbelts were available as an option. In 1947, Congress wouldn't pass the law requiring this equipment until 1966. The equipment itself wouldn't be required in every American car until the 1968 model year. Tucker scheduled his public unveiling for June 19, 1947. Thousands of people, national press, the biggest moment of his life. The problem was that the prototype was not finished. The car, which his team called the Tin Goose, had been assembled under impossible pressure. The engine hadn't been properly tested, the gearbox was temperamental, multiple systems were unfinished. Engineers had been making emergency repairs right up until hours before the event. Tucker knew this. His entire team knew this. When the moment came to drive the Tin Goose out in front of a packed crowd, Tucker made a decision. He drove it out anyway. The crowd erupted. The press called it the most advanced automobile ever built on American soil. Dealers began inquiring about franchises. Investors wanted in. Tucker stood in front of his car, tall, immaculate, completely composed, and sold them the future. Nobody in that building knew how close to disaster they were standing. For 6 weeks, Tucker appeared to be on the verge of changing American automotive history. And that was the moment 3 of the most powerful companies on earth picked up the phone. Here is the theory Tucker never stopped pushing for the rest of his life. And it's not hard to see why he believed it. The Tucker 48 didn't just threaten market share. It threatened to make the safety negligence of every other American vehicle impossible to ignore. If Tucker, working from a converted factory assembled in months, could build a car with a padded dashboard and a survival cage, the question became unavoidable. Why hadn't General Motors? Why hadn't Ford? Why hadn't Chrysler? The answer was money. And the Big Three had no intention of letting that become a national conversation. Their response came through politics. Senator Homer Ferguson of Michigan chaired the Senate's subcommittee on surplus property. He represented a state whose entire economy was built on 3 car companies. And in the months after Tucker's June 1947 debut, Ferguson began raising pointed questions about Tucker's finances. Almost simultaneously, the Securities and Exchange Commission launched an investigation. The charge: Tucker had sold dealership franchise packages in advance, collecting fees from dealers before the car was in full production. He had also issued stock. Together, the SEC said this was fraud. Tucker pointed out immediately that advanced dealership fees were standard practice across the entire American automotive industry. General Motors, Ford, Chrysler. All of them had operated this way for decades. Nobody investigated them. Tucker's response was not to go quiet. On June 15, 1948, he sent an open letter to newspapers across America. He named Senator Ferguson directly. He named the Big Three. He wrote that the investigation had nothing to do with finance and everything to do with the fact that he had built a car that made their products look like the dangerous machines they were. The letter was published. Readers believed him, but Tucker had made a critical mistake. He believed that being right was enough. He was about to discover what happens when the most powerful industrial lobby in American history decides it isn't. If you're still watching, chances are you're enjoying this story. so subscribe to BrandTale Saga and turn on the bell notification so you never miss our next documentary. Here is the part of the Tucker story that changes everything. The part most accounts leave out: the government didn't wait for a trial to destroy Tucker. They destroyed him first, then held the trial. In May 1948, before Preston Tucker had been charged with a single crime, before he had stood in front of a single jury, before a single piece of evidence had been tested in any court of law, the Securities and Exchange Commission raided the Tucker factory and seized its assets, not after a conviction, not after a verdict. They moved on a company that had committed no proven crime. While 1,600 workers were still on the factory floor, 1,600 people who had believed in what they were building, gone. Every investor who had put money in, every dealer who had paid for a franchise, every supplier who had signed a contract, received the same message, not from a judge, not from a jury, from government agents walking through factory doors: this company is finished. Tucker had raised $26 million from real investors who believed in him. Every dollar was now frozen. 51 Tucker 48s had been built. There would never be another. That same November, 7 of those cars were still proving themselves anyway. At speed trials in Indianapolis, they held a consistent 90 miles an hour, while the company that built them was already being dismantled in Chicago. Tucker held a press conference the day after the raid. He stood in front of his car, which now technically belonged to the government, and looked directly at the cameras. His response, carried by the Associated Press, was defiant. "I have a clear conscience, a marvelous car, and the will to fight to success." He didn't sound like a man who had been caught. He sounded like a man who had been betrayed by his own country. In January 1949, the factory formally closed and the Tucker Corporation was declared bankrupt. In June 1949, Tucker and 7 associates were formally indicted on 31 counts, 25 for mail fraud, 5 for securities violations, 1 for conspiracy. And what happened in the courtroom that followed was something nobody in the government had anticipated. By October 1949, the criminal trial of Preston Tucker had become the corporate courtroom drama the entire country was watching. The prosecution had one argument: the Tucker 48 was never a real car. The Tucker Corporation was an elaborate scheme to take money from investors who would never see a product. Tucker's lawyers dismantled it with the simplest possible evidence. They drove Tucker 48s to the courthouse. Every single day of the trial, the cars were parked outside, running, demonstrating, undeniably real. The jury could look out the courtroom window and count them. Tucker's lawyers kept returning to one question the prosecution carefully avoided. If this was fraud, why did the government destroy the company before the trial? Why seize a factory and throw 1,600 people out of work before a single piece of evidence had been tested in court? Why not let the legal process run in the normal sequence? The prosecution had no clean answer. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On January 22, 1950, they returned to the courtroom. Not guilty. On all 31 counts, Preston Tucker walked out of that courthouse a completely vindicated man and found absolutely nothing waiting for him. The factory was gone, liquidated while he sat in court, proving his innocence. The machinery auctioned off to competitors at 18 cents on the dollar. The 1,600 workers gone. The $26 million from investors consumed by legal fees and receivership. Tucker had won the courtroom. The government had never needed a conviction. It had only needed the investigation. But what happened to the cars he left behind is where this story turns strange. Preston Tucker spent the remaining years of his life trying to build again. New designs, new projects, new investors. The obsession never left him. On December 26, 1956, Preston Tucker died of lung cancer in Ypsilanti, Michigan. He was 53 years old. He never built another car. But what he built survived everything. Of the 51 Tucker 48s completed before the raid, 47 still exist. They are now among the rarest cars in America, and some of the most valuable. At a 2012 Barrett-Jackson auction, Tucker number 1043 sold for $2,915,000, still the record for a Tucker 48. They are permanent fixtures of the Smithsonian Institution and the Henry Ford Museum. The car the United States government declared to be the product of fraud is now a national treasure. Historians still argue about how much of Tucker's downfall was Detroit protecting its turf, and how much was Tucker's own refusal to use conventional bank financing while he raced to build a car in months. What's not in dispute is what he actually built and what it cost him to build it. And those features Tucker built in 1947. By the 1968 model year, the padded dashboard and the seatbelt Tucker had offered in 1947 were both federal requirements for every car sold in America. Safety cage structures are now the foundation of every vehicle crash engineering program on Earth. Every feature Tucker proved was achievable in 1947 became mandatory 21 years later. Which means for 20 years, Americans drove in cars that were knowingly less safe than they needed to be. We will never know how many people died in those years in accidents that didn't have to be fatal. In 1988, Francis Ford Coppola made a film about Tucker's story. George Lucas, who understood what it meant to fight institutional power over a creative vision, served as executive producer. Lucas put up the initial financing, then convinced Paramount Pictures to distribute it. The film is called Tucker, the Man and His Dream. It was released on August 12, 1988. When it premiered, Tucker's children were in the audience. Afterwards, they said it was the most truthful thing anyone had ever made about their father's life. That is the thing about Preston Tucker. He didn't fail, he was stopped. There is a difference. And every time you buckle your seatbelt, every time you walk away from an accident that 1948 would have killed you in, you are driving in a car that owes something to a man from Capac, Michigan, who was right about everything and was destroyed for it. Preston Tucker wasn't the last man who tried to challenge Detroit. 25 years later, another visionary set out to build the car of the future. His company became one of the biggest sensations in automotive history, before it all collapsed in one of the most unbelievable scandals ever. That story is already on this channel. Click the video on your screen to watch the rise and fall of John DeLorean.